You're listening to BioTalk with Rich Bendis, the only podcast focused on the biohealth capital region. Each episode, we'll talk to leaders in the industry to break down the biggest topics happening today in biohealth.
Hi, this is Rich Bendis, your host for BioTalk. We have an unusual show today. We basically have people that most of you should be familiar with in the biohealth capital region. But the other unusual element is that they're all affiliated with biohealth innovation. And generally, we talk about emerging entrepreneurs and resources within the region, but we have three great resources that are supporting a lot of entrepreneurs in our region with us today to talk about what we offer. And a couple of them are new. One, a re-entry back into the ecosystem with us. But we have Sarah Miller, who's the Vice President for Economic Development for Biohealth Innovation. We have Luis Gutierrez, who is a new Montgomery County part-time executive in residence, and Jen Butler, another new part-time Montgomery County executive in residence, who are all on this podcast today. So we're going to do a four-way, which is something that is not normally done. So if we trip over each other, you forgive us. But we have very distinguished and experienced podcasters with us, so we should have no problem today. So I think the first thing we always do is let each person introduce themselves. And I'm going to let Sarah Miller, our Vice President for Economic Development, introduce herself. Sarah?
Good morning, Rich and Luis and Jen. Thanks for having me today. I'm Sarah Miller, Vice President of Economic Development for BHI. I've worked with economic development and community development in Pennsylvania and Maryland for almost 25 years. So I'm excited to be here at BHI. I've been here about 18 months and looking forward to discussing this new project with everyone.
Thank you, Sarah. Next, we have Jen Butler, who was our first part-time executive in residence in Montgomery County, which we're going to explain that program to everybody later. But Jen?
Thanks, Rich. So I've been here in the Montgomery County area for almost 20 years. When I talk about my experience over the last 20 plus years, I really kind of talk about three major buckets. And I think most relevant to the executive in residence is I started my early career in capital markets and strategic consulting. And then my next kind of major season of my career was working within MedImmune and AstraZeneca, getting that very kind of rich pharmaceutical development, working across infectious disease, oncology, and inflammation, autoimmune. And 5 years ago, decided to go back to a bit of the origin story of working with small companies, biotechnology companies. And over the last 5 years, have been able to work inside those organizations, helping them either come to the U.S., start a U.S. commercial operation, or working with a company going from preclinical to clinical stage. And then this program is just fantastic because it really allows me to work with many, many different companies in the ecosystem, really understanding what their needs are to a whole host of things. And I know we're going to get into that. So thanks for having me.
Thanks, Jen. Welcome to BHI and the entrepreneurial ecosystem in the biohealth capital region. Our next guest is Luis Gutierrez, and Luis and I go back several years because he was an entrepreneur in residence, not an executive in residence. There's a differentiation there. Sarah will explain that with NIH, and Luis is rejoining both organizations. How about that? Luis, welcome back.
Thank you, Rich. I've been here in Montgomery County 30-some years, all working in life sciences and biotech in a variety of roles, some of which were local in scope, some were national and even global in scope. The skill set I bring is helping companies develop their product development and commercialization strategies to ultimately get to the marketplace. Great science is cool, but to have an impact on patients' lives, you got to commercialize it. And that requires, as Jen noted, addressing the needs of capital markets and a lot of other stakeholders. And I'm just delighted to see companies make that progression.
Thank you, Luis. Welcome back. And, we wouldn't be talking on this podcast today if we really didn't have the vision of County Executive Mark Elrick and Jake Weissman with the county, who said we really need to engage with emerging entrepreneurial companies in the biohealth area. Sarah, who is very experienced in working with county government and prior to BHI with Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation, interacted closely with the county exec's office and co-developed this program on the executive and residence need together. So Sarah, please give us a little more background on the evolution of this new program.
Sure. And that's right. This project is in existence because of the leadership and the financial resources that are coming to us from the county government. So we thank them for that. One of the things that we're doing here, there are a lot of services that are available to biohealth companies around the region and in Montgomery County. And because of those resources and that support for decades, really, we were able to be a leader during the pandemic with cures and diagnostics and things of that nature. Obviously, you've heard the stories of our companies receiving a lot of funding, both private funding and federal funding during the pandemic. But one of the things that we don't want to forget is the importance of cultivating the startup companies in the biohealth capital region. And one of the things that's interesting to me since I've been at BHI, we have a wide scope of services, but also a wide scope of folks that we work with. And so we can work with people from around the region, but also we work internationally and across the country. And so as a Rockville resident, specifically, I was really excited to be able to bring all these great resources back to our community specifically, and happy that the county is willing to help us fund that. And so what does this mean? This means that we have experienced, seasoned professionals and executives like Luis and Jen out in the trenches, so to speak, with our startups, helping them with all kinds of business issues related to commercialization, as Luis said, but also connecting them with our network and also expanding their own networks, connecting them with certain subject matter experts that we know, whether it's IP attorneys or regulatory, and really giving them an opportunity to sit and kind of vent and kind of their technologies and their business challenges with our executives and residents. And so they can each talk to you a little bit more about what they've done so far and to give you kind of a flavor of the types of companies, but also the types of challenges that they're helping them to work through.
Thanks, Sarah. Again, we thank Montgomery County for the opportunity to partner with them on this program as well. And now I think Luis and Jen can give us basically an idea of what are some of the basic needs that entrepreneurs need that are in the biohealth industry that we think that we will be able to provide some support to them. So Jen, let's start with you. What do you think are some of those needs that these entrepreneurs need?
Based on my early discussions just in these last few weeks, having the program start November 1st, what I've seen is that often they need additional support as it relates to like market data. So they understand the technology, they understand their science. And as a very, very tangible example, they may be looking for data that they may not be able to purchase. Market data can sometimes be expensive for the entrepreneurs. Cash is very precious. Even $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, which the market data can go for, is expensive. It can sometimes put an experiment behind a market data acquisition. And also knowing which questions to ask. What are the relevant market data that would help move a business development or investment decision to that entrepreneur? And so a very specific example, I've been working with one of the companies to really think about scoping that. And we can leverage, my background, and we talked about this as well, which is understanding what are the type of data that really can compel and really articulate where commercialization of the asset will go, but also, or the technology. We can use the market data that's available through BHI and through other things. So that's a very, very specific thing it allows those entrepreneurs to have. So I think that's one example that I'm seeing.
Great. Luis has been helping companies not only in the region, but nationally with the National Institute of Health in their programs for many years. So what do you see as the typical things that entrepreneurs need, Luis?
So to build on Jen's, that data about where the market is, what they really need is the coaching to then how to present a cogent business plan to both prospective partners, prospective collaborators, and prospective funders. A lot of early stage companies need advice on how to secure funding, be it non-dilutive funding, which is wonderful, as well as going out and getting equity financing. And we do spend a lot of our time helping entrepreneurs hone that pitch, both from a data-driven level and also a strategic level. Where are the holes in the marketplace? What's that pathway for getting to market? And balancing the length and cost of that pathway with the size of the return on the back end. And we're just delighted to help people do that.
Yeah, pitching is critical to all of them. And most of them have a lot of scientific background, but don't have some of the business acumen that is necessary in order to interact with investors and partners. So, the other thing, and I forgot to mention this, is that BHI has been involved with the NIH for almost 10 years now with the Entrepreneur in Residence program. In addition to Jen and Luis as executives in residence, we have 12 entrepreneurs in residence located throughout the United States supporting small biohealth companies. So not only is it access to what BHI has, when you put the 14 of you together, it's amazing. I was just talking to my wife about this. I said, we're 1 degree of separation from getting to almost any resource that anybody in the United States would need because of the vast network that all of you entrepreneurs and executives in residence have. So it's really an amazing environment, which really is unique, and Montgomery County is going to be a beneficiary on that. So, Sarah, when we talk about these services and the needs of these entrepreneurs, what kind of services will BHI be able to provide through the executives in residence to these companies?
Well, in addition to the network connections and their own personal expertise that they have, if there is, as I said before, a need for some specialized services, whether that be regulatory, IP, and others, the county also provided us with a small pot of money where we can actually pay for some of those services for companies. And I think that we haven't used those yet because we're still in the early stages of seeing what everyone needs. And the fact is, it takes a little bit of time for our executives and residents to develop those relationships, develop those strategies, and then figure out where the gaps are that we can help to fill. But that is an extra benefit that the county had the foresight to provide to us.
Yeah, and I think some of those areas in that incremental budget that we have might relate to intellectual property. And since we're not lawyers, that might be something which the EIRs can talk a little bit more. Maybe it's regulatory strategy, maybe it's reimbursement strategies or other areas. So Jen, Luis, talk a little bit about some of these other areas and, the resources that are available to entrepreneurs within the biohealth capital region that may be in your network or somebody else's network, which we may also be able to attract to support some of these businesses. So Luis?
Sure. One of the real attractions of this program is that the county has structured it in a way that it's a lot less bureaucratic and a lot less rules and regs and category driven than a lot of the other economic development programs that are available out there. So it really distinguishes itself that Jen and I can really do an in-depth consultation with an entrepreneur, figure out what they really need, whether we collectively, meaning not only her and I, but as you say, Rich, the entire BHI team, are we well suited, and or do they need to target some specific expertise in regulatory, in clinical science, et cetera? And there are funds available for that. So I'd say the hallmark of this program that the county's made available is the ease, the speed, and then the ongoing depth that Jen and I can stay involved with them over months. So it's a very different kind of program that is highly customized and get you the help you need, whether it's in our heads or it's in somebody else's head that we need to access.
And then before I go to Jen, one of the things of your area of expertise would be in regulatory, since you had a lot of years with Covance, a CRO. So talk a little bit about how you would see regulatory needs and when an early stage company should get involved in the regulatory process.
Certainly, and some of our fellow EIRs have even deeper regulatory expertise than I do, but getting that regulatory read, and not only for the US market, but also major ex-US markets. Because even if you're developing your technology here, most medical technologies are developed for a multinational, if not a global application. Early on, that totally defines how long is it going to take and how much is it going to cost before you can bring this thing successfully to market. And so getting that regulatory read early on is crucial. And of course, we're here in the shadow, literally, of the US FDA. So there's no shortage of folks who have that expertise at a specific therapeutic category level, which is so critical when you're looking at precedents and predicates of what's gone before you.
You bring up an interesting point about we're in the shadow of the FDA, but we're in the shadow of the NIH. And what actually brought me to Montgomery County is about 11, 12 years ago, the county executive said, we have all of these resources in our backyard. How come we don't get a greater return out of the resources that are here? And that's really why BHI was created. So, and here we are almost 12 years later, still trying to assist, but some of those needs have never gone away. and they remain the same for entrepreneurs today as they were many years ago or decades ago. And Jen, what's your experience? What are some of these other areas where you think that we can help benefit them?
Well, I think building on this idea of a real customized interaction with all these companies, I will say that the shared thing that you see across these small companies is that they have to rely very heavily on an outsourced model. Some of them actually, it's embedded in their strategy, for example, with CROs. But when you are a small company and you have, maybe you're scaling from 3 to 10 or 10 to 20, 20 to 30, you still need to have a kind of fully operational company. And so being able to talk with folks like ourselves who understand how to get to that scale, when to leverage a third party, they may not be thinking about outsourcing for maybe their operations, HR, legal, IT. When do they begin to think about bringing certain functions in-house versus maintaining them out of this? There's experience, there's art, and there's science to it. And being able to really sit down with folks who can really be, I'd say, an operational sounding board, in addition to your point, the pitch and the strategic. I think that's also a really distinguishing element to having the executives in residence who can really sit there and do that and network. And I agree. I can't talk enough about this incredible network that, you can kind of get into. Just speaking with some of the other EIRs, people, because they have so many years experience, 30, 40, they've done lots of different spinouts. You may be able to talk to someone who has an incredible ability to focus on angel and seed and Series A. Then you may be talking to folks who maybe have Series B, Series C. You may be talking to folks who've gone from 0 to 10 folks. Maybe they've gone from 100 to 200. But that's why you need to sit down with the companies and really understand what are your specific needs, where they are at that time. So that, again, with this idea, but it's this ease that we're talking to. The program is set up so we can have a conversation quick, we can get the work done, and we can really have that discussion.
Yeah, I think both of you are talking about the ability to go deep. I mean, this program isn't designed to help hundreds of companies. It's really to look at promising companies that have significant potential, don't have access to all the resources they need to grow, and basically give them access to that knowledge, networks, and potential funding resources, which all of us have some of those in our corner, really. So Jen and Luis, let's talk a little bit about personal successes you've had in working deeply with an individual company. What was the situation when you got involved, and where did you help them evolve? And what was really the success point at the end to where you felt that they didn't need you anymore, or they actually graduated? Let's talk about personal experiences each of you have had. So Jen, we'll start with you.
Sure. And I will say that since school just officially opened November 1st, I think we're not yet ready for graduation, but I will tell you that already we have had some success in that. So I'll just talk very personally. A company that just 4 or 5 weeks ago began to work with. My experience was oncology autoimmune. So from a therapeutic area standpoint, was able to very kind of quickly get up to speed. And they had got an opportunity to have a business development. It was that meeting, the meeting that you want, the right people in the room who can make a decision, very large pharma partner. And being able to sit with them and really work on the slides, think very, very succinctly and crisply. Like Luis said, you really have to kind of hit that. You got to stick that landing, and being able to do that. And that was within the first 4 weeks of that interaction. In addition, they had to submit a 1-page funding summary to a potential ability to get in front of a whole consortium of venture capitalists. That was just this past Monday, and really working out what does a 1-page get you in front in order to be selected. So these are very, very tangible. It's not a consultation. It's, really me kind of putting pen to paper, really kind of doing that. And also adding in 1 or 2 key kind of market context setting things so that investors can understand and the BD can understand what is the opportunity, what's the market we think we're going to disrupt or enhance specific to oncology. So it's a very specific example of doing that. And, I'll continue my conversations with that company going forward as, we have some things headed toward the end of the year.
Yeah, that's a great example of something that almost every company needs. So, Luis, this doesn't have to be within the last week since this is brand new with you. But the question is, in your career, talk about a deep dive where you really helped somebody and what you brought to the party.
Certainly, although it is one I'm working with now, a company that I engaged with that is local.
local in Montgomery County, huh?
Yes, indeed. Has a drug candidate that they're developing. And the entrepreneur was really struggling with kind of what's the pitch. And I helped him dive deeper to even what's the series of indications, because he had sort of too many of them. And what's the right priority from the perspective of pathway and payoff back, so that you can get that lead indication to fund the others. And again, in a matter of weeks, we redid his pitch, and he's now in potential M&A discussions. We'll see where it leads. It may lead nowhere. It may lead somewhere with another company who's interested and be a vehicle to funding the lead indication.
Great, super, great example. And it's one you're going to continue to work with as you progress.
And exactly.
Correct?
It's an ongoing relationship. It's not just, here's a 1 hour, here's my advice, have a good life, let us know how it works out. We'll stay involved over months.
Super. So these are some of the things that we see as the needs. Sarah, as you interact with county government and talk to them about what their expectations are that we're going to do with this program, what is it that you think that they're looking for BHI and the executive and residents to bring to these companies in Montgomery County, and what would be success in their minds?
These stories are success, I think, in their minds. I mean, this is what they want. They want to have one-on-one expert consultations and help and strategy with these companies. As I said before, there are a lot of different organizations that have teams that work with biohealth companies, but they're in different ways. You know, they have to do with leasing space, or they have to do with maybe tax credits and things like that. But this kind of one-on-one deep dive into the business and the business plan is something that's really unique to BHI. So I think they'll be very, very happy that they can be able to provide that to their companies. I would say the other thing that's interesting from their perspective is, in many ways, this is a fact-finding mission for them as well as policymakers. And so it's not every day, unless you have maybe a business roundtable when you hear from people, it's not every day that you get this inside view of the inner workings. And not to say that we're giving them proprietary information or anything like that, but you can begin to track the types of businesses and the startups that are in Montgomery County now. You can begin to see how, you know, all of the work that the county and others have put in over the past decades, what we have now kind of to show for that, how things have evolved, how bioinformatics, certainly the county just announced that program with the University of Maryland, and how really our biohealth cluster is evolving. And I think that you can't underestimate the importance of knowing that as a policymaker. The county has a long history of making good decisions about helping the investor tax credit supplement, right? Helping with the SBIR matching fund, helping with zoning issues related to biohealth. So this is just another example of them really putting their money where their mouth is and trying to find out how to help companies.
Super. I think that's fantastic. And I think it's all something that's very attainable in meeting the county's goals. And I'm just going to basically talk about 3 minor success stories, or actually major success stories BHI had, which we hope we can replicate with this program. First one is Benavir, which was a company that actually got incubated in Carol Nacy's company in Sequela. And it was an oncology company. The technology came out of NYU. And basically, they were looking as to how to take their science to market. One of our EIRs back then, many years ago, this is maybe 8 years ago, got involved, helped them pivot the company. And over time, Benavir ended up selling to the Janssen division of J&J, and the total potential valuation of that deal was over $1 billion. But they attribute the entrepreneur in residence from BHI helping assess the science, the technology, and the direction that they should go as one of the major reasons for their success. Another one, which I think is really emblematic of what we're trying to replicate in the region, is a company called Miracule. Anthony Sala started out as a research scientist at the National Cancer Institute, working on head and neck cancer with his research, spent several years with one of the top scientists at NCI on this technology, approached his PI and said, I'd like to learn about entrepreneurism, and interacted with one of our EIRs who was actually working at the National Institute of Health. And as a result of that, he ended up spending 50% of his time with BHI and 50% of his time with NCI. He interacted with our EIRs and analysts to learn about entrepreneurship. And what we did with Anthony is let him lead the international soft landing of a organ on a chip company from the Netherlands, Memetas, to enter the United States. And he actually ended up being the managing director of Memetas in the first 2 years to get them established here in the US. While he was doing that, a scientist at the NCI has a conflict of interest policy, which you cannot actually work on the science that you have been researching at a federal laboratory for a year. So he actually had to leave NCI to look at commercializing technology that he had been working on in head and neck cancer at the National Cancer Institute. He finally left full-time, went to work for BHI on a full-time basis. After his year, actually a couple of years being gone from NCI, he licensed the technology on the head and neck cancer, formed a new company called Miracule, and basically got the assistance. BHI was a co-founder in that company with him. Our EIRs and analysts and team helped him start up that company, and over time has been very successful in applying for non-dilutive funding and has received probably about over $4 million of non-dilutive funding, has taken advantage of both the Maryland and Montgomery County investor tax credit programs that were in existence. He took advantage of the matching SBIR program that was in existence at Montgomery County. And also what's happened is one of our analysts, Ashwin Kulkarni, has now gone to join Anthony at Miracule. So another resource which was educated in the BHI network is now working for him. Started off as a COO, but is more migrating to the financial world right now. And they've added another technology around muscular dystrophy to their pipeline. So they have a dual path with their science and technology. And then what was just released in the last month and a half has been a major deal with Sanofi, which involves a significant upfront payment and over $400 million of milestones that can be achieved for this company that has less than 10 employees. And all of this growth has evolved in Montgomery County, Maryland, with all of the resources. All of their expansion has gone within Alexandria Real Estate's facilities. Alexandria Real Estate Ventures was one of the investors in Miracule. Some of the board members of BHI have been angel investors within Miracule. So basically, this is an example and a poster child for Montgomery County, how a scientist at NCI, which is located in Montgomery County, left NCI, started up a company, took advantage of all of the Montgomery County, state of Maryland programs and all of the resources BHI has. And we're hoping Jen and Luis can identify other Anthony Salas that exist within Montgomery County that we can help them lead them down that same pathway that they have. And we know that Anthony's not done yet because the Sanofi deal only involves half of his pipeline. The oncology is still sitting there, which is untapped related to doing strategic partnerships. So we're very excited about his success. It's not fully achieved yet, but it would not have been able to have been progressed to the stage it is if it didn't have access to all of the resources that exist, the network and funding within Montgomery County, as well as some of the BHI team members. So Jen and Luis, you have identified somebody just like Anthony, right?
They roll in daily.
Of course.
Kidding aside, that's why we're doing this podcast.
Yeah.
Jen's email and mine are both posted on the BHI biohealthinnovation.org website. And we welcome inbound inquiries from companies I think may qualify.
Yeah, I think the key is, Sarah, let's talk about if somebody wants to get access to Jen and Luis, give me, a typical profile of the company that we would engage with, and how do they come in contact with us so that we could make those introductions?
Well, I know that they are not going to like this, but I would say that anyone should come in contact with us. And I think that's what makes this project a little bit different. It is not someone who has this idea of an SBIR that they need help with, or some idea of some specific thing that they, want to come to BHI for to get our well-known services. This is, in fact, a way that we can triage people's needs and talk to them and see what happens. And frankly, in some cases, we might not be able to help people. And I think that's okay too, but we will give our best recommendations and our best effort to assist people however we can. And so with that being said, certainly have the companies can go onto the website and touch base with Luis or Jen. They can certainly email me directly at smiller@biohealthinnovation.org. We also are in an outreach period right now where we are connecting with some of the better known incubators and shared workspaces, but we're also connecting with some of the newer small lab areas that have been built, and also some of those companies that sublease their space or their benches, as the case may be, to some really small startups. So we're really looking at those well-established facilities, but also within our network.
Thank you, Sarah. And I like to always close the BioTalk podcast with sort of an open mic where all the participants can have the last words. And you heard last words from Sarah Miller, our Vice President for Economic Development at BioHealth Innovation, on how to get in touch with this program and the executives in residence. And now let me turn it over to Luis Gutierrez, Executive Residence. Luis, last words on this new role you have.
Delighted to be back with the BioHealth Innovation team. And we're locally focused here in the BioHealth Capital region. And I welcome companies looking for help to get in touch.
Great. Thank you, Luis. Welcome back. And Jen.
I just can't reiterate enough about, I think, the ease and the access and the depth of the program. Please reach out to us, at least for initial talk. As Sarah had mentioned about triaging, this is a different program. This really is something to really have a great engagement. And I'm very, very enthusiastic about being able to support the Montgomery County and region through this program. So this is just incredibly important to really seeing this ecosystem thrive.
Thank you very much, Jen. And I want to thank Sarah Miller, Jen Butler, Luis Gutierrez for being on BioTalk today. And also, I think as a follow-up, and you guys can tell me the timeline, we'll bring on some of your success stories with you for some of those companies that you've been mentoring or working with over time. And we'll circle back and do this on a regular basis to give updates so that people can see the progress that's being made with the Executive in Residence program at Montgomery County. So thank you all, and good luck and good hunting for those newly emerging biohealth entrepreneurs in Montgomery County.
Thanks, Rich.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to BioTalk with Rich Bendis.